How do we learn about language? More specifically, this time, how do we learn about written language? It's actually just another specific way of learning about the world, similar to learning about spoken language. That is, we form mental representations as we've discussed, except that when it comes to learning about written language, we are making representations of the symbols and conventions we see in written text, letters, punctuation marks, organization of books and of text on a page, and so on. In answering the question, how do we learn about written language, we will turn our focus to the bottom of the acquisition of language and literacy model, the written symbols bubble. When we learn about written language, we use our senses to make observations. Making observations of written symbols primarily involves the sense of sight. As we observe written symbols, we learn to recognize the various fonts and sizes of the letters and know that they still fall into the same category, even though they are not exactly the same. We learn the labels or the names of the letters, such as the letter A. We learn that there are upper and lowercase letters, and learn which ones are which, and which ones go together. As we learn more and more symbols, and how they are related, ideally, we learn which letters are vowels, and which letters are consonants. We also learn to distinguish letters from punctuation marks. Making observations of the written symbols around us is of course done more easily if we are often exposed to books, magazines, and so on, especially as young children, and in particular, if our attention is drawn to the written words as we hear the spoken words around us. For example, if we're read too often, and the person reading to us moves their finger along the text being read in sync with their voice. Seeing the written symbols as we hear the spoken words helps people to make the connections between written symbols and spoken language, which is what is necessary to take the next step and learn not only about written language, but to use written language to communicate well with others too. Just as with the other items we learn about, we can discover patterns in the written symbols used for writing English as well. A set of very useful patterns to learn about the written symbols used in English is the syllable types. The 6 syllable types are 6 patterns that can be found among the written symbols used to write English, just by looking, using only our sense of sight. As I briefly introduce the 6 syllable types, keep in mind that right now we are just discussing written symbols, so we are only thinking about how the 6 syllable types look in terms of written symbols patterns. So the six different syllable types are open, closed, generous E, also called silent E or listening E, many other names, bossy R, vowel teams, and stable syllables. Each one of these syllables has a vowel. But at this point, the 6 different types of syllables all look the same as each other, with a vowel. To determine what kind of syllable a syllable is, you must look to see what comes after that first vowel. In open syllables, there's nothing after the vowel. It's like there's an open door, nothing's there. In closed syllables, a consonant or consonants comes after the vowel, as if the door is closed. In generous E syllables, a consonant follows the vowel, and an E follows that consonant. In bossy R syllables, an R occurs right after the vowel. In vowel teams, another vowel occurs right after the first vowel. And in stable syllables, a consonant and then an L and an E occurs after the vowel. Stable syllables can also have other forms, such as the suffixes shun or ed for meaning past tense, and lots of others. So, we can identify patterns in written symbols that correspond with these 6 syllable types. This knowledge about what written language looks like helps people acquire the ability to actually use written language, which is our next topic of discussion.